Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Friday, January 13th, and this is virtual lunch number 724. Our guest today is Sarai Schubert, the Chief Operations Officer at IPRO, and this is part of our series on expanding innovation in e-discovery with IPRO.
Hi, I'm Georgia Favaretto-Illig. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at IPRO. And I'm super excited about today because I love my Sarai.
Hi, I'm Patricia Bramer. I'm from IPRO, and I run the people operations.
Hi, I'm Gabe Gross, joining from New York City. I have the pleasure of working with Sarai at IPRO and really helping our clients, really in the law firm and service provider segment with all the great things that Sarai, Georgia, Patricia, and everybody at IPRO is able to bring forth.
I've been in this industry for quite a while, as Bruce mentioned. And I think, I've really started in the tech field. I was in Texas, actually, oil and gas industry. So, at some point around the Enron days when e-discovery really blew up, or right before that, I started to join with the service provider, then obviously later software, law firm, et cetera. So I've been in multiple different segments, providing obviously the consultative, approach from a technical perspective. So it's been a great ride, and I love what, I love what I do. I love the problem solving, right? That's our industry, is how do we get from A to B, and how do we help our clients? With the technical background, obviously I've been, servant leader, for a while. And at the same time, knowing your customers and knowing what pain points they're going through, and you've been there in the past, just prepares you for what problems do we need to go solve, right? And how do you go do that? I've been, obviously being at a law firm teaches you quite a lot, but also coming in and trying to figure out the different customers and what they're going through and the stages that they're in, right? Not everyone is in the same stage, and not everyone requires the same type of solution, right? It really shapes you. And when you have those backgrounds, under your belt, you really start thinking about what else can we do? How can we do it better? How can we improve? Working at a large global firm, it really does teach you agility, resilience. You got to have determination, but never really giving up. Seeing what it could be and what you could be doing really drives you to want to do more. One of the things that I always wanted to do is I wanted to be the one solving the problems. And I got to do that quite a bit, at a law firm, right? From a consulting perspective, to identifying what's the right needs, but it wasn't necessarily to the extent that you could. And Latham had a large development team. So we did a ton of stuff in-house. They're very much early adopters in a lot of ways. But in the legal tech field, that's a really hard thing to do, right? And so that was my goal in going into a software company, right? To really figure out, how can I then be in the driver's seat? How can I then help solve some of these problems? And it was definitely an eye-opening, to then see other, people like me who had the same struggles but different struggles. So it wasn't necessarily just what I saw. It was even more, right? Smaller firms go through different struggles than larger firms. And if you have that mentality of, I'm going to own this and I'm going to drive it, having that, obviously, that background really helps you to continue to get your team to do the things that we need to do for, for our customers. I would say that I'm probably the first person to raise my hand when I see a customer complaining. I want to go talk to that person. I'm not scared about it. I want to figure out what pain points they're going through and how can I help, right? I think sometimes, some leaders shy from that. I think if you shy from that, then you're not innovating, right? You're not changing, you're not getting better. We have 3, culture codes, and one of them is dig deep. And that's key. What that means is you are a person that's not going to give up, right? You're resilient. You are going to own a problem until it's solved. You're going to learn from it. You're going to get your hands dirty. You need to do whatever you need to do to move that forward. So it's something that it really requires for someone to be hungry and want to go the extra mile, right? Without you worrying about to have enough credit. So you look for those kind of values. And of course, you also look for the skills for that particular role as well. You do need people that have been in the industry. If I had a bunch of people that didn't really understand what my customers were going through, that's a problem. So one of the things that we do arm ourselves is with a lot of people that had been at a service provider, a government agency, a corporation, law firms, them gone through something really brings a ton of value to the company. And of course, on the engineering side, you definitely need smart people, right? You need those specific roles. I think innovating or having a roadmap that it's innovative, it's when you constantly thinking about how is the market shifting and how does that going to impact you, and you do it ahead of time. You're not necessarily doing it right now how it's impacting you today. You're thinking this is going to affect us later in the line. So you're constantly looking at the market, but you're also constantly looking at a strategy. How can you disrupt the status quo? How can we do things better? But at the same time, being strategic and seeing how things are going to affect you is also looking at things like data is growing like crazy. Where, in what sources, and how does that affect us, right? So it may not necessarily be what your customers are telling you day to day, which is still very important, but it may be something that they're going to need. This is going to be a challenge for you and you need to get ahead of it. You got to listen to your current customers. If you're taking months and months and months to respond to their needs, that's really hard. That's also part of you being innovative, right? It's making sure that you're solving today's problems while you're also looking ahead. We have to use our own tools internally, and if you don't, you stay behind. We also have to be using the different tools that our customers are using. You have to be able to know what's changing. You got to be able to see it, right, when it's changing. The technology itself, just to sort of explain it, it's basically being able to build a repository that gives you a single pane of glass into all of the different data sources. That's a hard piece to do, especially when it's not just Microsoft, it's also Google, it's also Slack, it's also Ignite, right? It's Box, it's a bunch of other places that your data resides. What corporations do now, they have to go through every single one of those, do some searches, find what they need, pull it out, and keep going, right? And that's not even your share file that's on this other server. And so it's very challenging to go through. What we do is we create the ability to build one repository that allows you to actually, without pulling any documents, right, allows you to do some searches, allows you to filter, allows you to look at the documents and actually assess. What it does to corporations is that relationship between IT and legal, my goodness, it's much better, right? They're actually able to collaborate. IT gets to still understand where the data is. They get to control it. Legal gets to actually do their investigations right on. They get to find things that they may not have seen. They get to respond to complaints. They get to investigate. They get to make early decisions. Is this really even a problem? Let's say you're already in litigation and you got to go get. We had a client that had to do 400, I think it was a little bit more than 400 mailboxes collection. Crazy. So being able to only graph and focus on what's really relevant and pull that forward. Forget, pulling or having your law firm having to look for privilege. You could do that earlier on, right? You could have persistent taggings on all of your law firms. That's a huge time savings. Anything that's privacy, that's even not related, right? You want to just not even account for that. So having the ability to do that earlier on before you even get to prior to collection, right? Or prior to you giving your outside counsel access, it's huge. We have, I think it was over 120 or so corporations that are using it now. One of the things that I love, it's that book from Patrick Lencioni, where he talks about, you have to be humble, hungry, and smart. And not smart technically, but like smart common sense. Those are key, right? Because if you are constantly hungry and wanting to do more, wanting to learn more, wanting to dig in and owning something without caring about what credit you get or not, you become a great team player. You become someone that wants to give you opportunities and wants to learn from you, wants to show you things, once you open up yourself from being able to soak it all in.
Sarai Schubert, everybody. I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to IPRO for supporting this series on expanding innovation in e-discovery. Just a wonderful way to start the weekend, and I appreciate everyone's time. And thank you so much, Sarai.